Okay, hey everyone and welcome to the channel. This is a completely new channel dedicated solely to editing videos and tutorials. So if there's anything you're interested in, anything you want to see, whether it's like Twixtor or 4K anime or color correcting, anything that you've seen and you want to know how it's done, just leave a comment and I will make a video on it. So for the first video, it's going to be covering 5 things you need to know before you edit anime. And even if you have been editing anime, this will save you a lot of time. So the first thing we're going to do is just make sure our settings are correct in After Effects. So go up into Edit and open up your preferences and open up General. So we're just going to cover a few. We're going to go into Display first of all. And we're just going to make sure that Hardware, Accelerate, Composition Layer, and Footage Panel is selected. You want that selected. Next, we're going to go to Media in Disk Cache, and you want to give as much space as you can on your computer for your disk cache. It's just going to let you play back more in After Effects. Now, the final thing we're going to do is we're going to look at memory and performance, and you want this to be as low as you can. After Effects uses a lot of memory, and so does Adobe Media Encoder. So you want to make sure that you are allocating as much as you can to actually use in After Effects. So once you have those, another quick tip is if you go Edit, Purge, All Memory and Disk Cache. So whenever this starts getting really big, right now it's small, it's 2.5 gigabytes, you'll notice your previews will start slowing down. So if your previews are really slow and it's hard for you to play back anything, then you need to purge your memory and your disk cache. Now, the second thing we're going to cover are shortcuts. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but your shortcuts are going to save you a lot of time while editing. So the most important ones I'm going to cover now. So duplicating a layer is Control D. Splitting a layer is Control Shift D. Now moving a layer, so let's say I want to move a layer to right here, I'm going to use my square brackets. And it's kind of hard to see these, they're on the top right of your keyboard. And you use this to move your footage around wherever you want. So maybe there's a beat drop right here, I might move this scene here, for example. Now obviously Control Z is undo, which is also a pretty important one. And Control Shift Z is to redo. The final one that's kind of important is if you double click L, sorry, you can see your audio, and this helps you line up your transitions and stuff with the music. And I think those are all the important ones. Now moving on to number 3, we're going to look at scaling and movement and keyframes and all of that stuff. So the way that it works usually is if you want to scale your footage, you'll keyframe your scale, and let's see, we want it to zoom out a little bit. Right, I might do something like this. Let me drop the quality so you can actually see. Right, and this is good. It gives you sort of a baseline, but what you can do is hit U on your keyboard to see your keyframes. Select both of them, right click, Keyframe Assistant, and select Easy Ease. And then click this, the graph editor. And this is what really gives dynamic motion to footage in After Effects. It's kind of confusing at first, and it's going to take some practice to get used to. But the way that it works is we are zooming in right now. So we want it to go fast, then slow. So the way we would do that is we would pull this down, and now you see that it's adjusting how our scale is looking. And if I pull this down and pull this across, it's now going to go really fast right at the beginning, and then it's going to slow down after that. So what really looks good with this is if we turn on motion blur, it's a little hard to see because I have the exposure up, but it'll actually add blur to our footage as we scale it. Now there's a whole other layering of scales and positions and stuff like that when you use null objects, but I think we'll cover that in a different video. So that moves us on to adjustment layers, and adjustment layers are a great way for you to add any effect that you want. I wouldn't recommend you ever put any of your effects on your raw clips. And it's the same thing with scaling and positioning. You also want to push those into null objects. For the most part, you want to keep your clips pretty clean of having anything on them. Because if you make a change to something in an adjustment layer or a null, it's not going to be affecting the actual clip. So let's add some color correcting here to show how you can use adjustment layers. So you can hit Control-Shift-Y, Control-Alt-Y, or go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And let's put in curves, and let's put in levels. Now, for the most part, I usually just pull down sort of the darker areas in my curves, and I usually increase my input black just a little bit to get a nice contrast without sort of touching the light parts of the footage. Now, what's nice about using an adjustment layer is if I see that this is, maybe it's too strong or something, or I want to have a little bit less, you can always just drop the opacity of it. And then at any time, if I want to disable this effect or it's not really what I'm looking for, I can always just turn off viewing that layer. So that is why you should always be applying your effects in an adjustment layer. Now, we're on number 5 already. I'm going to throw in one extra one because I just thought of it right now. But this one is something that not a lot of people do, and it can save a lot of time. Which is, let's say I have done a lot of work in an adjustment layer, I put a ton of effects in, maybe I'll put in chromatic aberration as well, and adjust this a little bit. Of course, it looks like it's too much. Okay, so let's say I've gone and I've put a bunch of effects in my adjustment layer, and this is something that I might potentially use later on. What you can do is you can select every single effect in here, and you can go to Animation, Save Animation Preset. And now what you can do is you can save this as, let's say, Simple Color Correct. Excuse me 1 second. So now, let's say I'm editing a completely new project and I want to apply those same effects. What I can do is I can create a new adjustment layer, and now I can just go into my effects and presets and I can actually search for Simple Color Correct, and I can drag and drop it in. So this can actually save you a lot of time when it comes to setting up your effects or color corrects or really anything. So I actually have a ton of them saved here. That you can see here. So transitions, element 3D, particles, transitions, stuff like that. So this can actually save you a lot of time in editing. Now there was one final thing I wanted to cover before I ended this video, and I just have to remember what it was, if I'm being honest. I remember it being important. Plugins? No. Preview? No. Nothing with... Oh, so the final thing is sometimes you might lose your toolbar, or some windows might not be showing up that you might need. And if that's ever the case, what you have to do is go into Window and just find where it is and just check it. So if your tools are missing or there's something you don't understand where it is, just go into Window, try to find where it's located, so we have Tools, and then select it right there. So I tried to keep it kind of brief. Hopefully you guys found something that's going to save you some time or learned a little bit. And we're going to have tons of videos, so if there's anything you want to know, quality, Twixtor, 4K footage, transitions, anything like that. Leave a comment, I'll get to it.